Jeff, how challenging is it, speaking of Rashawn specifically, Rebs was in here yesterday talking about how much attention other teams give him, whether it's double teams or thumps. How challenging is it to still game plan ways to get him opportunities when teams are doing that to him?
I think it goes back and forth, right? We got to move him around, and we got to see how teams are going to come out and protect against us, and then counter that and change things up in the game. If they're doing one thing to take him away, we got to find another way to get him involved. And then if they're going to try to find ways to take him away, then we have to have our other guys show up, or we have to scheme other ways to pressure opposite them and do a bunch of things schematically, which I think you guys kind of saw last week, right? We went into the game and, we didn't get as much pressure early, and I think it started to show up pretty much on second and third down in the second half of that game. But we'll continue to work and do some things with him where I think you're going to see him have success.
You talked a lot about TFLs going into the season. Where do you think you are there? What do you? I don't think the numbers are real high. How do you think you're doing there? And what does anything need to change there?
I think we're getting into some good second downs. We've been in a lot of get back on track situations where you get them in second 8+, and you're forcing teams to throw the ball on second down, and we can get after them a little bit. I think you saw that a lot in the second half of the game against the Vikings, and you saw it a lot the second half against the Titans, which allows us to kind of ramp it up if we win first down. I mean, you got to pick and choose, right, how aggressive you're going to be on early downs. But we want to win those early downs, so we get ourselves in those situations on second. I think I know we've played better against the run, and we're continuing to improve that way. I don't know where the numbers are. I mean, you have the numbers for TFLs? I don't. So I'd have to look at those, but, hopefully we'll keep being aggressive up front and we'll get more and more. But I don't have that. I couldn't tell you the exact number of those right now.
2 yards or less is a successful first down?
Yeah, we get 2 yards or less and getting them in the second and 8, and we feel pretty good about that. We'd rather have them get no yards, but that doesn't always happen. It depends on the down and distance, right? First and 10, we'd like to get them in the second 7+ as much as we can. Because normally teams have a pretty high tendency in what they're going to do versus second and 3, 4, 5, or 2, right? So we'll continue to do that. I know we've played better on first down as we've progressed throughout the season, and that's been very important to us to change up the looks.
Jeff, just what have been your impressions on Kenny Clark and how he's played just up to this point in the year?
I love Kenny. Practices hard every day. We played him a lot of snaps in the last game. I think he's helping us in the run game a lot. And I think we can do more things to help him get more production in the pass game. And some of that is who we've played in our first 4 games. I mean, I think everybody, last week we're up here and we're asking how we got 8 sacks, and now I'm sure everybody wants to know why we didn't get 8 more last week. I wish we had 9. I mean, that's just how our league is, right? We got to keep those going. I think Kenny's done a good job. I think he's one of the best interior D linemen in the NFL, and I think as this thing shakes out, everybody's going to continue to see that. And I can say that with confidence.
Jeff, what's the key to defending screens? Is it often play call versus play call, or is it more, are there things, like you could have done better physically in the Vikings game when, Jones got out on some of those screens?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at each screen individually. I mean, in one screen, we're in a 2-high shell, and we should have 2 players vice it. On another one, we were in man coverage, and whoever had that guy in man stepped up and didn't cover his man out, and we should have been all over that one. And then there's coverages where you might be pushing a coverage over, and you're left 1-for-1 on the backside of a screen, and it's not a really good call, right? So you can find yourself, like there's certain down and distances where, all right, I got a good feeling a screen is coming, and you can be dialed into it, and they can still block it up, but you got more people around the ball to give yourself a better chance to get the ball down. Then there's some that kind of surprise you a little bit in different field zones and different down distances where they haven't run them as much. And the key is, a lot of the time, the key is the retrace of your defensive line, right? If you watch around the league, you watch the explosives right now around the league, not just in our games, which I try to watch and see how people are getting attacked and how people are giving up big plays and what are people doing to get those big plays. The number one thing that's coming up right now is screens. So they're not easy to defend. There's no yes, we called this against the screen and it's an automatic win. If they're executed really well, one of our guys has to win. You got to have someone set the edge, force it back inside, and then you got to have your D-line and everybody else retrace and run. They're good calls on offense. And now we've defended some really well. We've defended some of the same screen really well, and we've defended some of them not so well. But certainly the retrace, the recognition, myself trying to recognize it to help our team be in a better position to defend it. And then by down and distance and field position, you got to try to be dialed in.
You never know what side they're going to, right? I mean,
It's a good question, right? Because, I mean, I study those screens all the time because there are some formation tendencies week to week. There are some motion tendencies week to week. But what do good offenses do? They're going to hide it. They're going to end up in the formation, but they're going to play with our players' eyes, and they're going to move a guy, and shift a guy, and all of a sudden it's going to be the formation we thought it was coming in, but you didn't really see it until you turn on the film the next day because it happened so fast, right? So field zones, down and distance, who's in the backfield, execution. I mean, they're good plays, but it's clearly something I've thought a lot about too.
What couldn't you do that you might have wanted to do if you had Jair last week?
I'm not going to go down that road. I think it's a fair question, but, I trust and have faith and confidence in all the players that we put out on the field, and we'll always do so.
And so late in the week, was there things you had to adjust to, though, that maybe you had planned that you were going to do that you didn't do?
I mean, those are just excuses. We got a good staff, and we're confident in the players we have, and, the plan was the plan, and but my mind doesn't work like that.
Other stops in the league, how long do you think it's taken to get a really good feel for your personnel?
That's a great question. I think you're going to continue to learn them as the season goes, especially as injuries happen and you have guys playing new positions, right? You have different guys playing with each other. I just think it takes some time, and I think it takes some time for those guys all to gel. But at the same time, the coolest thing from last week, and this kind of is going off, you just gave me a thought. I learned a lot about our personnel last week. I learned more about our personnel last week than I learned the first 3 games of the season, and that most teams don't learn. Our personnel and ourselves were down 28-0. I don't know, you ever get punched in the gut and feel like you're going down? And our guys got back up, and they responded, and we came all the way back, and we were a touchdown away from winning the game, and we gave up 3 points in the second half. So what I learned about our personnel is they believe in what we're doing, and they believe in each other, and they're never going to quit. And that's very rare, very, very rare. So as far as learning who our people are and how they have to play and what they do really well, I think that's going to be, we're going to continue to find that out. But finding out who our defense was and what those guys were made at when you're standing in front of them at halftime and you're losing by 21 points or whatever it was, and they don't blink, I think we found out exactly who we are, and that should excite everybody because I don't think that happens, especially with a young team and a new group of guys.
Sean, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but he mentioned he thought he's been blitzing more now than maybe he did all of last season. Is that a staple with your scheme, or is there something about him that you really like that lends itself to him doing some of that kind of stuff?
I think he's a good blitzer. He's aggressive, and I think he's improved at it. If you show signs of a guy improving. You remember in the Philly game when he almost sacked the quarterback and they completed the ball down the sideline? He had a chance there to get the ball out. And what did he do in the last game? It's the same exact thing. He went, you see it violently, he went right for the hand of the quarterback and got the ball out. So he's fast, he can accelerate, he's aggressive. I think it was a really cool step if you show us back-to-back the progress he's made. And then it all just matters what pressures we want to run each game. But when you have a guy who's a capable blitzer, I mean, let's blitz the guys who can blitz, So I think both.
This is probably a stupid question, but on the play on their last field goal drive when Jefferson gets the one for 27, when he runs the crosser and then the tight end runs the crosser from the other side, do you coach like Stokes in that instance to go under it or over it, or how hard are those to defend, and how do you counter when other teams are probably going to try that similar thing against you guys now?
When he just kind of took off and ran across the field?
And it looked like, I maybe missed something, but it looked like Stokes just got caught up in the cluster there, and that's why he was so open on the 27-yarder.
Yeah, I mean, one, we're in man, right? And if you're defending a guy and he's just running away from you, I mean, could he have played it better? I'd have to go back and watch the exact clip and try to figure out exactly what he should have done better. Was it his alignment? Should he line up more inside? Was he outside? Did he get rubbed? I mean, those are hard to cover, right? And we had a pressure on there, to be very truthful, and we didn't hit the pressure fast enough, and we didn't hit the pressure right where that shouldn't be able to get across the field. So it ties in. If you're gonna take a shot and send a pressure and play man, that's a hard down for him to run 25 yards across the field with one of the best wide receivers in this league, right? So it's got to tie into the pressure and the rush there, so that thing doesn't get off. That's a hard down for him. He could have played it better. We could have blitzed better.
You're at 22 tackles for loss, in case you were wondering.
Okay.
I don't know, good or bad through 4 games.
I'd have to look at the rest of the league to have something to compare it to. You found that pretty.
I think.
How many?
6.
Wyatt does?
Yeah.
That's a good job by Wyatt.
Look, I'm looking to get after Rashawn with this question, but at the same time, so you're talking about how you can do better things, the other guys can, but with the status that he has and the expectations that he has, there's expectations for him too, right? And both from himself and from everybody around him. I mean, the elite guys get chipped all the time. They get thumped all the time. So how do you challenge him, and how much more do you need from him, even with everybody else doing their part to help him be more productive?
We can challenge him all we want. If you know RG, I think he's going to challenge himself, right? I mean, I don't think RG is going to sit here today and tell you that his production is where he wants it to be, right? And it's the same for me. So I look at that hand in hand. I mean, we need to get more out of him, and he needs to get more out of me. I mean, that's just the facts, right? So we need to work together on that, and I think you're going to see that this week. I'd be very disappointed if we didn't. But there's no, RG doesn't need anybody to challenge him. He gets it, and he understands that for sure. I mean, I want all these guys to have production. I mean, that's the two things that I told you guys about. The only thing, tackles for loss, the numbers, they are what they are. Sacks, the numbers, truthfully, they are what they are. You want to look at yards, you want to look at this, all that's great. I just want to win. And I want each player to have as much success as they can, because I want to help them in their futures, and I want them to have success. Those are the things that are important to me. So the fact that RG's not having that success, that bothers me. I'm not mad at him for it. I'll be mad at myself. Let's help him, let's coach him better, let's help him better, and then he's got to go do it. And I totally believe that he will, and we'll do a better job with him.
So the league lead is 27.
Okay, so how many do we have?
22. So you're right in the middle of that, basically.
All right. Well, I appreciate you finding that out for me.
So obviously we've talked a lot about X.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Evan Williams, getting him on the field. We haven't talked a lot about Bullard, though. Just seems to be kind of a steady kind of guy. What have you seen of him through 4 games?
I think he's done a really good job, and we've asked him to do multiple things. I think he had a really good second half last week. He hit a couple pressures. He had a couple TFLs were big-time plays. We got to get him around the ball more. You want to talk about what I can do better? I can put him closer to the football in certain ways, because he's really good when he's close to the football, and we need to get him more involved, right? I think he's having a really good first 4 games, and I think you'll steadily see him do more and more. Evan Williams is a guy that we got on the field more last week, and I think you're going to continue to see him play more. He's very intelligent. He's starting to practice at a higher level. He's good at communicating. He can play the deep zones really well, and I think he's a good tackler. So hopefully we'll see him more. And then the last one you asked was about X. I mean, I think X right now is the best safety in the league. So that's how I feel about him.
Jeff, I was talking to Quay the other day, speaking of guys that are getting better. I mean, it looks like he feels like he's really starting to make incremental success. What are you seeing from him, and how vital is that to have him starting to really take off in this?
Yeah, and it's kind of like 2 weeks ago, you guys asked me about Quay, and I kind of beamed with confidence. It's kind of how I feel about RG right now, right? It's kind of how I feel about our whole defense right now. I told this to Quay today. I watch Quay in practice right now. He's moving faster. He's more comfortable. He sees it better. He knows the calls. There was a specific example of there was a down and distance where before I even called it in practice, he knew what I was going to call, and I kind of smirked, and I was like, all right, now we're that's big. That says a lot, because he's dialed in, and he really is starting to see it and think faster. But just the way he moves around right now, and in the way he practices, I think he's getting better every day. I'm really excited, like, it's not coach speak. It's like I see it. So I'm excited to see what he continues to do. And he deserves it because he's working so damn hard.
Cooper's pursuit of the ball after the fumble, did that open your eyes, or do you see that in practice too? How quickly he got to that ball?
He can accelerate at a really high level. I mean, he can fly. He's another guy. I mean, he got a little bit banged up in that game, or he was going to play more and more and more, which is what we need from him. He is a dynamic athlete who's highly instinctual and is physical. It's just like we've talked about. He missed the preseason, right? And now he's kind of been in and out. We need to go. He needs to be healthy, and he needs to practice, and we need him to play. And I'm excited about that when it happens.